In the West, we find ourselves in precarious times. For many, it's quite easy to look around and feel hopeless given the current state of affairs. Nihilism is as popular as any celebrity, and if the West agreed upon it as a religion, vast would be its patrons. Generations no longer care for the well-being of those to follow, and those that are here see little point in playing the game. It would be quite presumptuous to attribute this to any one factor, as there are many straws breaking this camel's back. Nonetheless, there are some factors more important than others when considering our current position. Today we will touch on one of those factors. This would be our simple and limited understanding of knowledge. Currently, the West is more educated than any other portion of society for all of human history. This is deeply ironic given the abundance of problems we have at hand. We'd assume our educated masses would swiftly be able to help with any and all obstacles, but this is not the case. We do not educate a population to help in any meaningful sense with our societal problems, but instead to recite facts that establish allegiance to a group, whether that be political or national. Given our culture of education, we place a great value on knowledge and information, and we esteem these above few other things. However, the view of knowledge that we hold is limited and unsophisticated. Of all kinds of knowledge, we value empirical knowledge above all. This comes mainly as a consequence of one of our major driving forces, the scientific establishment, and one of its holy axioms, the scientific method. While the scientific method has been, and continues to be, a useful paradigm for experimentation, its insistence on the removal of value from the equation makes it an unstable structure to build a society upon. The idea of knowledge that science is built on is one of abstraction and theory, what the Greeks might call episteme. Such knowledge is considered its own end, and has no concern for the results which it produces. A mathematician need not care about the results of his theory, just that the theory is coherent. He also need not care that this theory produce nothing, as the development of the theory is its own production. This sort of knowledge, the theoretical kind, is but one type, a type we have quite well exhausted at this point. This sort of knowledge will not bring cultural salvation to the West. It will not be on the wings of some new technological breakthrough or scientific discovery that the world is made whole. So long as there is no competing force to this conception of knowledge, our society will operate in a way most suited to an epistemic worldview, by dealing with the world as the average of its sums. This operation is primarily one of efficiency, for it's easier to deal with the world in averages than it is to exhaust the effort to make sure every case is accounted for. But the average is cold. The average does not exist. No average person, no average family, no average life. Only individuals making individual choices, expressing individual desires, something science, episteme, could never nurture. Now, science, to its credit, will do its best to leave open room for error or incomplete information. For this reason, we have the scientific theory of many things which the average person might conclude are well-established facts. Admirable as this may be, the lack of direction that science and the scientific method provide still leave us grasping in the dark. In an attempt to fill this void, we look to contemporary ethics, sadly, in disappointment. Once a field of discussion that promised to deliver insight about the way we should go about our lives, the conversation has become a den of charlatans, using turn of phrase and logical maneuvers to advocate for the same belief systems, or, lack thereof, that contribute to the current status of things. This is quite a sad fact, as ethics is a good bulwark against the drawbacks of science. Whereas science cannot tell you how to live, only what is, ethics can give you direction on how to live, while it cannot tell you exactly how things are. In a world full of scientists, we perhaps know more of what is, but tell a blind man what is in a room without telling him where or how to get through it, and the information serves little purpose. In the same way, moving through life becomes muddied and unclear. The larger questions of life increase in difficulty, proportionate to the anxiety they produce. What is the chief end of man? Simply a silly joke. What is love? simply a material reaction. The list goes on, until timidly we do not assign value to anything, even to ourselves. Philosophy is a term that means simply the love of wisdom. Philo meaning love, Sophia meaning wisdom. We as a culture come from a long line of philosophers. Philosophy is our heritage. For the philosopher, gaining wisdom is the highest of priorities. This is not done just to improve a theory, or just for its own sake. The goal is to use wisdom to live a better life, a good life. The first goal of the philosopher was always to learn more, not so that they could make the world a better place, but live better within the world that is. These men, deeply concerned with gaining wisdom wherever it could be found, considered all kinds of knowledge in their search for this precious treasure. Some kinds of this knowledge may include episteme, which was mentioned earlier, that can be considered a close relation to our idea of theory and empirical understanding. Another type of knowledge can be called techne, which is the knowledge of craft and trade. This type of knowledge is one embodied in practice, rather than that which lives purely in the mind. Even considering these two types of knowledge, which are not comprehensive of all categories of knowledge that have existed within the West history, the narrow focus of our so-called knowledgeable and educated society is obvious. We may have many theorists, but where are our practitioners? Yes, we have a large class of those with empirical knowledge, supposedly, but where are those with the knowledge of craft? We boast on our doctors and our scientists, but where are our carpenters? Where are our tradesmen? Furthermore, how many practitioners or theorists would we look to and consider wise? Wisdom, though it does not bring you into harmony with a craft or with a theory, brings you into harmony with the world. The wise man is one that strives towards the skill of living. What choices should I make? How should I make these choices? Am I seeing the world properly? Am I living with the correct idea of justice, of fairness, of temperance? These questions, and the skills that come with developing answers to them, are the domain of the wise man, the domain of the philosopher. The burden the philosopher bears is the realization that acquiring wisdom is a never-ending pursuit. While gaining wisdom, there might be some point at which some consider you wise, but it does not mean you've gained all wisdom which there is to have, or which there is available to you. Wisdom, existing in degrees, there will always be someone more wise than you, means that there is something more to learn about how to live one's life, no matter what. Therefore, living one's life becomes an effort guided by self-reflection and sound judgment, both of which take a great deal of effort. This component of effort is what makes wisdom open to all, but only acquired by some. Looking at what has been discussed so far, it's obvious that the West's conception of knowledge is at a deficit of what it once was. Recognition of this fact is by no means a solution, so the inevitable question remains, what now? First and foremost, it cannot go without saying that we must rediscover the importance of wisdom in each of our lives. Also, when considering other types of knowledge, such as techne, it's obvious that empirical knowledge does not stand above the rest, but simply side by side. This is not to diminish an empirical understanding of the world, but to emphasize that it's simply one type of understanding, useful for a certain set of problems. With this perspective, we can pull from a pantheon of many types of knowledge to solve problems without assuming an empirical approach is always correct. When this happens, society will have a fuller and more vibrant repository of creativity to pull from. Questions from one domain of knowledge might find their solution in the realm of another. The unexpected connections which have so marked major groundbreaking moments in our discovery of the world will come back into play. That is to say, we open back up the space for serendipity. With a more serendipitous attitude, and hopefully a society of wise individuals, we can pull ourselves out of the tailspin which we are currently in. Therefore, let us take the first steps towards wisdom, open up the possibilities for knowledge, and begin, in our own lives first, to make the world whole again.